Hey there guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Voice of the Valleys yet again with your host, friendly neighborhood far-right thug. That is a joke, of course, for those of you, as again, may not be introduced to that being a joke. That is a joke, not actually that kind of person. Friendly neighborhood far-right thug, Mr. George Cresswell. Hope we're all doing well. Hope we're all having a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever we are. It's Monday the 28th of July at time of recording. Up to now, we seem to be making some good progress on the front of reaching some understandings with things that have been going on outside in my personal life as a result of what I spoke about in the last episode, where I've said in the past with things that I've said on social media, I haven't always conducted myself in the best manner in terms of how I've said the things that I've said. Went down the whole rabbit hole before of how we can get caught in cycles of anger and fear, and then we say things in ways that we wouldn't otherwise say them, even if the things that we are saying have truth to them or we believe that they're true, and we can actually have a productive discussion around those things. Pardon me a minute. When we're in a state of fear, when we're in a state of anger, that becomes impossible. So happy to say we seem to be making some... I'm out of focus again. I am, aren't I? Might have to move Bailey out of the way in the background. This is putting me out of focus a lot. Unless I put myself more like that. There we go. Is that it? I can't tell if I'm out of focus or not. There we are. I think I'm in focus now. Anyway, apologies, I'm a little bit bunged up at the moment. I do apologise, but wanted to get this out so I can hopefully get it edited and out later on today, because there's a couple of important things we need to go over. Many important stories, many which I bookmarked and wanted to go back to, but I realised I bookmarked so many that I'm not going to be able to get to them all in this episode in particular. So it's good talk for more episodes in the future. But I wanted to start off with this. Like I said, it's quite fitting because we had a Plaid Cymru leaflet come through the house the other day, and I was very eager to burn it. So that was a nice little cathartic experience. Because this is something that came up on my X feed that I bookmarked. Somebody had shared that Plaid, as again, if you know how extreme they are to the left side of the spectrum, the net zero communist side of the spectrum, well, they put in their manifesto, they put in their policies in their manifesto that they don't actually say the term, but they support what's called 20-minute neighbourhoods. Now, if that sounds very similar to 15-minute cities, it should. And again, this is another example of how these people, they're very intelligent. These people, believe it or not, I was going about how stupid these people are for the things that they support and want to bring in. But these people are very intelligent because they want to dress it up in nice language and tie it in with other things. The really good saying about this, right, is that every good lie has a kernel of truth to it, right? That kernel of truth makes it harder to discredit the lie and also makes you question yourself a lot in these instances. So they put this up on their website. I'm going to read it for you now, ladies and gentlemen. If you know about 15-minute cities and things like that, if you look at China, for example, which we're told is the roadmap of where our governments want to take our nations, where everything is monitored. You cannot do anything without the consent of the government. In public, you can't even take a dump without the consent of the government, because you need to have facial recognition in order to get your rationed toilet paper from a dispenser before you go into the toilet. That's not a lie, by the way. That actually happens in provinces in China. And it will happen here. Make no mistake about it. Active travel and 20-minute neighborhoods. So this is how they started off, right? In their sustainable greener communities section, walking and cycling are not only more sustainable than motorized transport in environmental terms, but can also be an important part of healthy living. So again, that's not necessarily a lie, right? That's not necessarily a lie. And many people, many people could benefit from doing more walking and cycling or whatever in their daily lives. Absolutely. More people could benefit from being active and going to the gym and increasing the daily activity and moderating the food they intake and stuff like that. That's the case for pretty much everybody. But you can see this is being done so you don't see the real reasons, which they won't tell you, as to why they want to bring this in, because it's legislation. It's legislation, yes, but it is control. It is control and surveillance. That's the word I wanted. Apologies, my brain's not firing that well at the moment. But they want to bring it in so they can have control, and they do that through surveillance. We're seeing it in Wales at the moment anyway. You're seeing cameras popping up on roads all over the place. All over the place. Many areas, you know, even in rural areas of Wales, it's almost looking more and more like a surveillance state every single day. And with the recent legislation that passed to do with online safety, which, stay tuned to the end of this episode, ladies and gentlemen, there's a very funny way that kids these days, showing that they're smarter than the boomers in government, are getting around that, getting around the age verification. But this is all to control people in these 20-minute neighborhoods, as they say. You'll need QR codes to go in and out of, and the government can shut those off at any time for any reason, and you don't get no say in the matter whatsoever. This will pave the way for social credit controls with regards to how you pay for things, and then you'll be blacklisted because of your political opinions and stuff like that. This will happen. This will happen. And they're openly saying it. They're trying to fool you, thinking that it's going to be for your benefit. It's not going to be for your benefit. At the very least, if it's going to be for your benefit, it is the premier example of a Faustian bargain, where the devil gives in one hand, but he takes with the other. Okay? They give you, you can't even really make this case of what they're giving you. They're giving you more examples or more opportunity to be healthy, which people don't necessarily take, but they take away your freedom and your freedom of speech and your freedom to hold different political opinions at the same time, under threat of losing your ability to pay your bills, to buy food, all of these things, right? Many people in China, I saw a video, a very alarming video that happened recently, that I believe they'd just been made, at the flick of a switch, basically, they'd just been made homeless. And then they were sleeping on bridges and stuff like that. Not sure the exact reason why, but you can't give the government that power. You cannot give the government that power, because even if you support this, it will come back and be used against you eventually. Make no mistake about it. I mentioned before that what the government is doing with regards to everything. So the next story we're going to be talking about is the fact that with this Afghan security breach and everything that's going to be happening because of that, we now have literal Taliban coming over. Yes, I'll get into that in a moment. I kind of lost my train of thought again there for a moment. But even if you support this right now, in theory, because of what you think it is, I promise you, A, it's not what you think it is. It's not going to be useful what you think it's going to. And even if you support it, these people, because of what it's going to take to keep their power, will use it against you if it comes to it eventually. That's what we saw in the Soviet Union. That's why do you think every head of the NKVD or every head of the secret police, when the new head would come in under the new premiership of whoever it was come in, they'd be killed, and all of the previous Politburo, for the most part, would be killed, or at least kept in a state of fear to do what the new leaders wanted them to do, knowing that the number was going to be up eventually. It's a culture of fear. This culture of fear, which many of us are feeling right now, you might not feel it at the moment because you may support this in theory. It will be used against you eventually. Make no mistake about it. If it is deemed as politically advantageous to the government, and make no mistake, they will. They will. They show how evil they can be. Like when people call the government a necessary evil, but we're being shown in the UK at the moment how evil the government truly is. And look at how they dress it up. So they say Plaid Cymru supports the principle of creating 20-minute neighbourhoods in all our towns and cities, providing convenient, safe pedestrian access to the places people need to go and the services people use nearly every day. Public transport, shopping, schools, parks, social activities. Notice you don't see cars. Notice you don't see cars, for example, and personal automobile ownership, because obviously they want to get those off the road anyway. They want to get those off the road because of their net zero zealotry, but also what is the number one symbol of freedom in a way? It's the automobile. A personal automobile where you can go wherever the hell you want, whenever the hell you want, and you're accountable. Okay, we're all accountable to something greater, but in that moment, you're technically accountable to no one. You can take it and you can go and drive to a pond. There's nobody stopping you. These things come in, they will be stopping you. Well, I think they're floating around initiatives like tax per mile and stuff like that, which I done it on my car with like approximate mileages and stuff like that. It would end up being, I think, about £1,500 a year in road tax alone. Okay, which is completely unsustainable, obviously. Fact of the matter is, this is all being done to fleece you of your money and power. More money and power to the government, less money and power to you. And your freedom goes with that. Our freedom goes with that. So we cannot allow, I say it on X all the time, and this is one of the things, even when I'm getting emotional, I completely stand by this, I'll stand by this 10,000%, is that I dread to think what's going to happen next year anyway. But whatever you think of Labour, Plaid are worse. Plaid are worse. They are the worst of everything, pretty much. So this is all, as I said, on their website here. It says tied in with their net zero commitments and all of these things. Everything that, again, is to make you and me more impoverished, less powerful, less influence on our political future and the future of the country and all things like that, and give more power and influence to them. Using their power that we've given them, not to make our lives better, to make their lives better, and actively make our lives worse. And in many instances, actively put us in danger. So this now is not specific to to Wales and Plaid Cymru. This is going on to that where they're making us unsafe. This was published 2 days ago. This is from the Telegraph. Taliban fighters brought to Britain in airlift after data leak. So our government are now bringing Taliban to Britain. Afghans with British blood on their hands, living in UK after corrupt officials facilitated evacuation of jihadists from Kabul. So former Taliban fighters are living in the UK after being airlifted from Afghanistan on British Mercy flights. The jihadists were allegedly among thousands of people brought here for their own safety. So there you go. Before I even read the rest of this sentence, the government is more concerned with the safety of people who want to kill and enslave us, who killed and has blood on the hands of our soldiers, and the government are more concerned with their safety than yours and mine. Are you awake yet? Because they were on a leaked list of names of Afghans who had applied to come to the UK. Forgive me for not exactly caring too much when these people have British blood on their hands. Sex offenders, corrupt officials, and people imprisoned under the US-led coalition are also among those who have been accepted for resettlement in the UK in an apparent failure of vetting procedures. I don't even know if this is a failure, to be honest. I think all of this is being done by design. This is very similar on a more globalized scale of what happened in the USSR anyway, what happened in the early days of the Soviet Union when women had to be socialized, right? Where they're bringing sex offenders, foreign sex offenders to our country, right? There's no good reason for that whatsoever. Other than the reason they say this good, they want to normalize this. They want to brutalize people so much. That's what they did in the Soviet Union to women. The atrocities that the Red, it's not the Red Guard, it's, you know, the Red Army committed against women, right, deliberately, en masse. And it was to normalize by force this degenerate behavior, lawlessness, all of these things, right? If you want to know more about that, you have to subscribe to Daily Wire Plus. I know they're, you know, kind of controversial saying that name with, you know, who their leader is and their stance on the conflict in the Middle East and conspiracy theories and all of these things, and people getting, again, angry on social media, all of these things. But they have a really good series on there from Bill Whittle. It's called, I think it's called Empire of Terror. You don't know, it's an 11-part series on the atrocities that were being committed in the Soviet Union from the Lenin Revolution onwards. And it was truly, truly awful things. Truly awful things. I'll see if I can go get some examples for the next episode of some of the things that happened. There was a lady who was tortured by being gang raped up against a tree, I think for about 12 hours. And then she was tied to this tree, obviously. And then they set fire underneath her and was going to burn her to death. And then Bill Whittle said, mercifully, they shot her in the head before she was actually burned to death. But you had people like Laventry Beria, for example, who was the head of the NKVD at the time. He would send his NKVD agents out prowling the streets at night to kidnap women, take back to his residence so he could rape them. And then afterwards, when he would then load them back into the cars and take them back home with these NKVD agents, he would give them via his NKVD agents, a bouquet of flowers to make it seem somewhat consensual and normal. We're talking truly, truly evil. We're talking evil on the scale of what was going on in the Soviet Union and Maoist China and all of these things that is going on in the UK now. We just haven't seen the worst parts. Well, I suppose you could see we have seen the worst parts of it with the rape of Britain, with how many young girls were sacrificed on the altar of multiculturalism, right? We've seen it. We've seen the atrocities already, and it's only getting worse. It's only getting worse, and it's only going to get worse unless we all get on the same team, basically. Around 6,900 Afghans are being flown to the UK as part of Operation Rubific, the code name for the government's response to the 2022 data breach. In which case, again, if you need the context, the British official wrongly shared the personal details of 25,000 Afghans, who I believe, mind you, were already known to the Taliban at this point, and they were already sending out their death squads to try and find these people anyway. So it wasn't even so much as a leak. They already knew. They already had their death list. Applied to a relocation scheme for those who had fought with British forces during the war with Afghanistan. I've already said again, not exactly good people anyway, that we were aligned with, the rampant pederasts that they are, or worked as translators or in other support roles. Until this month, the High Court super injunction had prevented the media from reporting anything about the leak or the airlift. This is the biggest, as I said, one of now the biggest issues with regards to national security we've ever seen. As you know, I put an energy drink in my shaker and I mixed a bit of creatine with it. That's why I went pop. So I went pop when I shook it. Oh, it's nice. We're going to do that as I wanted to get a bit of sugar in there, so it helps with the creatine uptake. Anyway, the Telegraph reported earlier this month several cabinet ministers raised serious concerns about Operation Rubific because they're worried about national security, as many of us are, and the latest disclosures appear to justify their stance. According to multiple senior sources in Afghanistan, the evacuation process was infiltrated by individuals with Taliban connections who exploited the system and got fighters to the UK, including by naming Taliban fighters as family members and dependents who needed to join them here. It makes you wonder how many are also exploiting other means of getting here. Just reminded me, I want to go and bring this up for you, ladies and gentlemen, because there was an example of something that was going on with this. How many of them do you think are exploiting other routes to get here? So we have Taliban fighters here exploiting these routes off the back of this data breach to get here. We also, for example, this is reported by Robert Spencer. He posted this article yesterday. Iran to exploit North African asylum routes to infiltrate the UK with thousands of jihadis posing as asylum seekers. And the UK leftist globalist government intent on destroying British culture and national character will welcome them in. So he said here, and you can find this on the Jihad Watch website, ladies and gentlemen. According to an article published by Marco Giannangeli, I think that's how you say it, Express, Iran's migration jihad sees thousands of radicals sent to UK on weaponized routes. Iran is preparing to exploit North African asylum routes to infiltrate the UK with thousands of radicalized operatives posing as asylum seekers, a leading security analyst has warned. According to intelligence shared with European officials, Tehran has forged a strategic partnership with Algeria, using it as both a propaganda base and a transit hub for smuggling radicalized operatives into France, the UK, and beyond. At the center of this campaign is the Polisario Front, a separatist movement operating in Western Sahara. Long supported by Algeria, the group is now being co-opted by Iran and Hezbollah, according to, I don't know how to pronounce that person's name, Director of Research at the Forum for Foreign Relations. The group's ties to Hezbollah and the Islamic regime have been confirmed by intercepted communications and intelligence dossiers. So this is the thing. This is why people calling for like an overhaul of the asylum system, an abolishment of the asylum system, whatever it is. I don't even know if abolishment is a word. Abolishing of the asylum system. They're doing so because of reasons like this. They're doing so because we can see what's going on. We're seeing that foreign governments that are, in many ways, in this instance, pally-pally with our own, seemingly, whether they want to keep up the visual that they are actually opposed or not. They hate us as a people, mind you. They hate our government in the back of their mind, but they will use our government's weakness and hatred for our own people against us to smuggle their terror fighters in. And that's what we're seeing now. So that's why the people calling for an abolishing of the asylum system, they called far right, they called all of this stuff. No, they're concerned because we have literal terrorists masquerading as asylum seekers. That, mind you, if you're concerned with the safety of asylum seekers, which people fleeing persecution, yes, we should genuinely be concerned with. But again, with how much it's being weaponized, such as when you have Plaid Cymru MSs floating the idea of bringing 1.5 million Gazan refugees over. Bear in mind, we're only a country of 3 million people. We're only a country of 3 million people. That will be a hostile takeover. It's not this, but they don't care because they want the votes, right? But the weaponization of the asylum system then means that the people who actually need asylum are less likely to get it. They're actually less likely to get it. It's a big case like where people coming over people were making the case with the southern border in the USA, for example, with all these people weaponizing the border and coming over the border, actually making it harder for people who do want to not only legally emigrate to the US, for example, or legally immigrate to the US, but then also making it harder to discern people who genuinely need help. And that's what led to then their massive child sexual trafficking scandal, where I think it was floating around the idea that there was 325,000 children that were unaccounted for that had gone missing under Biden's open border policy. They're very likely being sold into sex slavery. And people want to make the thing that so much progress we've made. If you haven't watched the film, this is a little bit of a tangent. If you haven't watched the film Nefarious, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't watched the film Nefarious on Amazon Prime, wherever you can get it, go and watch it. The demon character, and what's the guy's name who plays Edward Wayne? What's the guy's name who plays Edward Wayne Brady? The actor's name. He puts in a fucking tremendous performance. Let me find him. Sean Patrick Flannery, or Flannery, however you say it. I do apologize, but Sean Patrick Flannery, Jordan Belfort, they are tremendous on screen together. So Sean Patrick Flannery is playing the guy that is possessed by the demon. He's this serial killer. And Jordan Belfort is this atheist, medical doctor, psychologist that's been brought in to determine whether he's going to be fit to stand execution. And just the chemistry that they have on screen, but not only that, the performance that Sean Patrick Flannery puts in for this demon character, who's known as Nefarious in the film, I believe his name is. It uses like a Phoenician dialect that hasn't been spoken for 3,500 years, but the closest you'll get in your dialect today is Nefarious. But just the social commentary in the film. And one of the biggest things, we have more slaves in the world today than we ever did at the height of the Roman Empire, all of these things, right? And half of them are like sex slaves. And there's so many other bits of social commentary in the film as well, and really shows how smart the devil is compared to us. Really shows how smart these spirits are compared to us. And that we think that we can go and tangle. We think we're so enlightened, and it really puts why pride is so damaging on full display. Go and watch the film; it's truly amazing. Even if you staunch atheist or whatever, I strongly advise you to go and watch the film just for the social commentary and just for the performance as well. But the biggest thing it highlights is there's evil in the world, and we cannot now see it even when it's right in front of our face, right? We cannot see the evils that are going on right in front of our face. And even though people that want to do good, a lot of the people that are on the side of the people supporting the actual destruction of our countries, because they want to do good, but you're putting your efforts in the wrong place. I promise you, putting your efforts in the wrong place. So please don't be deceived. Please don't be deceived. And you want to make sure your heart doesn't harden to people who actually need help and things like this. But evil forces and the people that, whether you think about evil or not, people in charge of these things do. So, for example, you might not be a devil-worshipping Satanist. You might just be a live and let live carefree atheist, right? Yes, okay, that's you. But the people who are bringing these things in are not that. The people who are bringing these things are not that. And you need to be concerned with what these people believe. And that's why, to an extent, we need to be concerned with what everybody believes. And that's why it's not just a live and let live, we're all in our own individual bubbles, carefree world. That's not the world that we live in, okay? Because whether you might, again, you had the people worshipping the big owl statue at Bohemian Grove, right? There are people in the world that believe this stuff, and they're the ones implementing this, and makes them wonder if maybe there is a greater evil than simply what's manifesting through us, that there's obviously going to be a cause of that. And then that leads you down some other deeper questions with regards to your entire worldview and stuff like that. But again, that's a massive tangent I just went on. But Please understand that many people coming over, the vast majority of them, I would say, A, economic migrants, and B, potentially exploiting the system to actually get here and do us harm. We've seen enough rivers of blood already. I dare say we're going to see a lot more, thanks to our own government. So again, direct your anger. You don't need to necessarily direct your anger at any individual person, but you should be very angry at your government right now. You should be very angry at the government right now for the situation that they're putting you, your family, and your communities in. As an example, this was a flight, I believe it was to Scotland, and BBC and Sky News, I believe they've covered it now, but they didn't cover it at the time. It was a bomb threat incident on an EasyJet plane, and you had a man, I believe of some kind of South Asian descent. I'm not exactly sure where he's from, and I believe this was on an EasyJet flight going to Scotland, and I believe he's screaming Allahu Akbar, saying he's going to he says he's going to kill Donald Trump, kill Elon Musk, he's got a bomb, he's going to blow up the plane. Imagine how terrified you'd be. I don't care how much of a social justice warrior you are and how much you're concerned with diversity, equity, inclusion, all of these things. Don't lie to yourself. And if you were in this situation, all of those, beliefs that you have would go out the window, because you know exactly what this could lead to, what exactly it would likely lead to, and all of those things that you lecture people about being insensitive and everything like that would go out of the window in this moment. Video coming on screen now, ladies and gentlemen.
Going to bomb the plane. Dead to America, dead to Trump. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
No matter how much sensitivity training you've been through, don't lie to yourself and don't lie to anybody else and saying that you wouldn't be terrified. You wouldn't be terrified, and then you know exactly what this person means. You know exactly that this person is saying it because he believes it. They're not just saying this is some kind of joke. They're not just saying this is some kind of joke, right? So again, death to America, death to Trump. So again, this might not be in the UK. I've just heard some people saying that it was on a flight to Scotland, but again, these people don't care because they'll just say death to the West. Okay, all of these things. Magbar Omrika. That's the phrase that they often chant. You hear it chanted all throughout some areas of Iran and stuff like that. But this is what I mean. This is indicative. This might just be one person, but this is indicative of a much wider problem. We just said that you potentially had, 6,900 odd Taliban fighters, I believe it was. The 6,900, I remember I said is referring to something else. I don't think it was, but you can go back and listen to this recording and see if it's not. But they might not have numbered the actual number of Taliban if they haven't got the numbers to go with. But again, imagine this. This is one incident. This is one person. And now we've got thousands of people sharing the sentiment coming in. You don't think we're going to see more Southports? You don't think we're going to see more horrendous attacks? Manchester Arenas, Lee Rigby's? You don't think we're going to see this? I promise you, unless we do something that we are, because it happened, there's another example of this, happened in Japan, for example. So this is somebody reporting from Japan. A Japanese woman and her elderly mother have been stabbed in the face. This was July 26th. I don't know if they've actually reported the nationality of the person, but they were stabbed in the face, it says, and neck in her own home, or in their own home, if they live together, by a foreigner in Saga Prefecture. And it's notable in this instance, obviously I've never been to Japan, so I can't speak on it, but this is shocking because Saga Prefecture is known for having one of the lowest levels of foreigners in Japan. So again, just think now, we've got, this has happened in Japan, for example, and we've got 6,900 jihadis coming across. So you might have just seen a bit of a jump cut. So basically, I was trying to read off the subtitles in that video, and Jesus Christ, the lady on the video is speaking extremely fast. So basically, an emergency call was made And it was a man, I believe it, man suddenly entered a house in Saga Prefecture, in Imazato city. He entered a house and stabbed them in the face and neck with a knife. And is Miss Maiko Mukimoto, who lives in this house, was stabbed by a man in his 20s and died. She died, by the way. And her mother in her 70s was also injured and taken to the hospital. The man is a foreigner with short black hair and is fleeing from a house with a knife-like object police have set up, and the police go into the reporting that. But this is showing this is going everywhere. This is happening everywhere because it's not just unique to the West that governments in many instances have turned on their own citizens. This is everywhere. It's everywhere because our governments have decided in many instances they don't want to be accountable to the people anymore. They want to be accountable, or they are accountable either financially, whether they have ridiculous blackmail on them, or just because they're plain evil, whatever it may be. So all of these other globalist organizations that for some reason have been content on flooding these people into our countries as a way to get rid of people's democratic rights and freedoms. Because then the people going in will vote for the governments that allowed them there, which are accountable to the globalist organizations higher up, and then you are not able to vote your way out of it anymore. You're not able to vote your way out of it anymore. It's a danger with ideologies like socialism, communism, these things, right? Is that you can vote your way in, but you can't vote your way out. That's the thing. Because you give the state more and more power, you can vote your way in, but you can't vote your way out. It's like a black hole. It's like a black hole, and we are, if we're not already inside the event horizon, we're getting perilously close. We're getting perilously close. At least with a black hole, obviously there's no way to escape anyway, because obviously not even light can escape. But then it's not going to be anything short of getting out of it other than anything short of a revolution, really. So we shall see. We shall see. And again, people coming here, ladies and gentlemen, these have been people that are coming here legally in their numbers way too high for way too long. But it's just showing they don't care about for example, the culture that's here. They don't care about what existed prior. They're coming here to take over, to implement their own culture, all of these things. So what you're seeing is heartbreaking destruction of things going on in Syria right now with the Al-Jilani militants that are going through it, attempting to erase Syria's 10,000-year-old cultural identity, destroying the, stone artifacts on the sides of buildings. We see them doing it in our country as well. We see foreigners ripping down crosses off of churches, right? I showed you a video of that a little while ago. See them putting their flags on our buildings, right? Literally colonizing, and our governments, our councils are only too keen to do it. So one in Aberystwyth and one in Swansea recently have put a Palestine flag up. Should never, ever, ever be happening. Should never, ever, ever be happening. There's very few cases where there should be a foreign flag on political or buildings of landmark, those kinds of like castles or whatever it might be, right? Council offices, political offices, those kinds of things. Very, very few reasons why. Maybe you've got a delegation coming over and you do display the flag of the nation that's coming over alongside your own, but you never put it up in place of your own. Put it up in place of your own. That's showing either your ties and your commitments are elsewhere from the nation that you come from and you were supposed to represent, or you've been taken over. Only one of the two. So again, this is what's going on in Syria right now. It's absolutely heartbreaking because these areas of the world are often very culturally rich. They're very culturally rich and they have a very, very rich heritage. A lot of these areas from this area of the world do. You look at, again, I know people don't like it, but you look at the area that's the modern day state of Israel. You see the architecture, you see the old streets and stuff like that. You go into the old city and stuff like that, the Western Wall, right? Or Wailing Wall, I can't remember which. I've seen people use the terms interchangeably, but you see these things. It's rich with history. Very, very rich with history. There's people coming in that want to destroy it. And make no mistake, they want to destroy our civilization as well. I'll turn the music off, but you can see there's a person, ladies and gentlemen. It's like this face sculpture on the side of this building, and they're knocking it down with a sledgehammer. Sooner or later now, it's just going to fall. Boom, there we go. And that might as well be irreplaceable. These things here might as well be irreplaceable. You can see how much like the time and weather and stuff has already eroded them. But this is awful. This is truly, truly awful. And we enabled this. We enabled this, mind you, not necessarily us as a people, but our government with our tax money in our name enabled this, enabled the slaughter of the Druze people, right, in Syria, enabled the slaughter of other minorities in Syria. In the name of what? In the name of what? It's okay when these people do it, obviously. If we were to go there and do this, oh God, you know, we have foreign artifacts in our museums, right? This is the reason why. This is the reason why in many instances. So we return the artifacts to these places, you'll never see them again and they'll be destroyed. They'll be destroyed. So in many instances, yeah, it is better off if we keep them. At least we take care of them. It's another reason why, again, more pragmatically than anything else. Because I responded to a comment somebody left the other day. Regards to the theology of dispensationalism, and it seems to me that a lot of Christians, for example, are making idols out of the secular government of Israel and stuff like that. But again, why Israel, for all the flack that it receives, it's, you know, protected the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, for example, from harm, or at least it hasn't shown any signs of wanting to destroy it or anything like that, as it has been destroyed many times throughout history when other empires have come in and taken over. You know? So that's why I'm thankful in some ways pragmatically, and why I'm in favor of Israel existing pragmatically. So I think if you were to remove all of the Jews from Israel, not only that'd be a great atrocity, obviously on the scale of how many people would be affected, and very, very reminiscent of what happened throughout history as well. But you'd lose all of the, you know, the artifacts of the faith that has defined this nation in many ways, due to the faith being spread all across the world. From history, and that would be a truly, truly awful thing to have happen. You know, it was like if you were to hand it over to the most radical Muslims, if you hand it over to these people that are occupying Syria at the moment, these militants that are occupying Syria, you'd have no Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Don't think. You have no, Wailing Wall or Western Wall. You have none of this. They tear it all down. Pretty much all these people, these types of groups are good at, really. But we subsidize this. We subsidize this terror. So you should be angry, because this was done in your name with your money. And you didn't have a say in it. The slaughter and the genocide that's going on in Syria at the moment for the Druze and for other minorities and stuff like that is directly funded by us in our name without our consent. So tell me how we are a free country with a government by the people, for the people. Again, I think that's quite a hard case to make. And the media reporting on things. So this was a headline from Mail Online, where again, whether it's because we've taken in this political orthodoxy think, if you will, breaking news came out of Croatia, I believe it was. This was published yesterday. The article itself was published on July 25th in Mail Online. There was very, very sadly, a 28-year-old woman was gang raped by what the media, in this instance, the Mail Online, reported as 3 Brits, and was bitten all over her body during a 2-hour ordeal in a Croatian beach hotel. This is a horrendous, horrendous crime, right? Truly, truly horrendous crime. Not only being gang raped and sexually tortured for 2 hours, but bitten all over her body. Makes you think, what animals would fucking do this, right? What Jeff, Jack, and George, let's just go with that. What Jeff, Jack, and George would do this, right? No. The names of the Brits are Ami Arifi, Gezhim Safa, and Soqhib Shakibi. So yeah. Army Arifi, 29, Gezhim Zafar, I don't even know how you say it, 28, and Soqhib Shakibi, 24, appeared before an investigating judge on Thursday. The men have been remanded in custody pending further investigations into the incident, which happened on Tuesday, which would have been... So if we go to 25th... Where's my calendar? There we go. So the 25th, so this incident would have happened on the 22nd. So this would have happened on the 22nd, so just under a week ago. The 28-year-old woman, who is a local, was a victim of a planned attack, and the men, who are all from London, face up to 10 years. First off, how are they getting 10 years for this if they get convicted? Why are they not getting life or hung from the fucking end of a rope? Glad to see that the suspect's offer of 30,000 euros bail was not accepted. But 10 years for this disgusting, heinous crime? In a country they probably had no business ever being in? But of course, because they're just from London, you know, that means that they're Brits. That means that they're the exact same as you and me. I'm sorry, they're not. I'm sorry, they're not. 3 British men by the name of Ami Arifi, Gezhim Zafar, and Soqhib Shakibi. But this is more of a problem with the media. There's more of a problem with the media. We've become so, via this very, very targeted PSYOP media operation, to think that there's no such thing as national identity, to think there's no such thing as your identity as a people, right? To think that everyone can be just as Welsh as you and me, or just as Irish as the next person, just as Scottish as the next person, just as English as the next person. The dilution and the elimination of the ethnic identity rooted in the ancestry and DNA is literally the fabric of who you are as an English, Welsh, Scottish, Irish person, right? That doesn't exist, that anybody can be that. Anybody can be that, either just by virtue of where they're born or whatever. Doesn't matter where their ancestry will lead them to, right? Yet if you were to suggest that we then do the same for African populations or Middle Eastern populations and all of these places, or like South Asian populations, you'd be laughed at. You'd be called racist. You'd be called, how dare you? It would be said that you'd be committing genocide. Right? The same people that think, you say Africa for Africans. Give you 2 thumbs up. What are the ones we got? Say Arabia for the Arabs or whatever it is. Europe for the Europeans, all of a sudden you're a far-right Nazi. How? Why? You don't ever see the diversity crowd saying that we need more diversity in the Middle East. That we need more diversity in Iran, in Iraq, in all these places, right? No, it's just in our countries. It's just in our countries because it's a very well-constructed plot to destroy our countries. And I say that with no hatred of any individual person that may, in all seriousness, be coming over here just seeking a better life. You know, they say you can't fill up anyone else's cup unless you fill up your own first. And we can't help anybody else, whether we go to areas of the world or whether we did decide, you know, to open up our borders again in the future, whatever it might be. We cannot do that until we set our own house in order. Before we go about fixing the world, we need to set our own house in order. And our house is a fucking mess right now. And keeping the door open to just everybody that wants to come in from anywhere in the fucking world is going to make that immeasurably worse. It's like a party, right? It's like a party that's gone on way too long. There's way too many people. They've trashed your house. Okay? And we've all played a decent part in trashing the house along with them. But then when it comes to actually clearing up the house and actually getting everything back in order, what's the first thing maybe that we can do? We close the door and then start getting people who do not own the house to leave. Now, you can take that metaphor wherever you want. And sadly, it seems this is the thing that's really got me thinking at the moment, because Pope, for example, this next part, this is a Cardinal Sarah, I don't know if I'm saying that, Cardinal Sarah, gave a stirring speech today in France, which I love this man. I absolutely love this man. For all the people who call me racist and stuff like that, absolutely fucking love this man. So he gets it, in my opinion. And he's one of the few people within the Catholic Church, for example, that I see actually standing up for it, actually standing on true principles. And actually is a big reason, in my opinion, that people still have faith in many instances, because you don't see that in the Pope, for example. Many people, again, this is not me necessarily criticizing the Pope too much, but the Pope made a speech, or the Pope put out something on X recently that really left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, given that, hoping maybe it was going to be slightly different from the previous Pope, right? Pope Francis, who was in other things, not necessarily changing church doctrine, church teaching, stuff like that, but in other things, very liberal, it seemed. But he said, it was 3 days ago he said this, the communities that welcome migrants and refugees can be living witness of a society where the dignity of all as children of God is recognized, and in which all are brothers and sisters, part of the same family. Now, again, not me to speak theology to the Pope or anything like that, but why, for example, then is he not speaking out about how these systems are being weaponized to actually destroy the faith in many of these countries? The many of the people that are quote-unquote refugees and migrants are not bringing over pro-Catholic, pro-Christian sentiment and actually want to destroy the faith in these communities. Not to mention, when he's posting, so 22 hours ago, he posted with great concern on the dire humanitarian situation in Gaza, even though I've just seen footage of apparently Israel flying aid packages over and parachuting into Gaza. Again, kind of weird where a hostile nation has to subsidize the food of the nation that is at war with them. That's kind of weird. But again, he posts a lot about Gaza, posts a lot about these areas. Oh, and luckily, I'm actually now, he put a little tacit, put a little one statement. So he made a multi-post thread about Gaza, and then he says, I also pray for the victims of violence in southern Syria. So that's actually good to see now. But again, this praying for peace and stuff like that seems to be very, very one-sided. Seems to be very, very one-sided. And it's resulting in a lot of people wondering what the hell is going on. Are we just having another globalist puppet as Pope? Especially when, and again, this is more so what we need to do. We do need to return to the faith in many instances, because literally everything that's happening in Leviticus 26, Deuteronomy 28 is happening pretty much in real time. But Cardinal Sarah, who I believe was the same guy who said, you are, when he was giving an address to Poles, he said, you are Poles first, then Catholics, then Europeans. You don't sacrifice either of the first two on this altar of this nebulous idea of being a more global identity, European global citizen. Basically saying, no, you are of your nation first, and the faith that is of that nation, which Poland is a very Catholic nation. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, with its strict migrant controls, with it being very, very ethnically homogenous, Poland, one of the safest countries you could be in Europe, makes you wonder why then the Pope is putting, words out there for what Poles should do, what everybody should do, obviously, but then Poles should take in more migrants and ruin that safety, really? Ruin that, cultural and ethnic homogeneity where you go to Poland and you actually see Polish people and you see Polish people practicing the true faith? You want to ruin that? Very, very confusing. But he's alleged to have said that you were Poles first and Catholic and then European. And he said this in France: too often in the West, religion is presented as an activity. This is speaking more towards people who want to weaponize religion and weaponize Christianity in particular. As an activity in the service of human well-being, religion is equated with humanitarian efforts, acts of charity, the welcoming of migrants and the homeless, the promotion of universal fraternity and peace in the world. Even if these matters are important, this vision of religion is false. Religion is not a matter of food or humanitarian action. In the desert, this was the first temptation that Jesus rejected. And he's been very vocal on saying, for example, in France, he said, do not profane France with barbaric and inhuman laws, responding to, I believe that's the legislation France wanted to bring in with regards to euthanasia and stuff like that. This is, I wanted this guy to be named Pope. For all the people that call me, racist and all of these things, for the things that I say and the issues that I talk about, right? I wanted this guy to be Pope. I wanted this guy to be Pope. Because I think he's sort of, not just saying because he reinforces my biases or anything like that, but it seems to be from what he's saying, I might have a correct read on the situation of things, whereby, as I said, when it tells Christians to make disciples of all nations, you need to have nations to make disciples of. And for that, then you need to have borders. You need to have people within that nation that comprise that nation. A nation is its people. You cannot do that with a nebulous open borders, the paradise policy, right? I lose the words for it. It's not a paradise policy. This utopian ideal of open borders. You cannot do that. Hell has open borders. Heaven has very strict border controls. But what is he talking about, for example, ladies and gentlemen? So if you have a look in the Gospel of Matthew, for example, so this is the one that came up for me as a context for when you look at Jesus' temptations by the evil spirit. So in chapter 4 of Matthew's Gospel, you have this. And this is from the New Revised Standard Version, Catholic edition. Then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, and afterwards he was famished. The tempter came to him and said to him, if you are the Son of God, command these stones to become loaves of bread. But he answered, it is written, one does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. So again, point being is that it's not just these humanitarian efforts and stuff like that. It is every word that comes from the mouth of God. And I dare say, ladies and gentlemen, as a country, as individuals, as a world, we're not doing a very good job in living by every word that comes out of the mouth of God. Many says we've gone exactly in the opposite direction, and that is why I want you to go and watch that film Nefarious again, because the social commentary in that film with regards to how far evil has become entrenched, and the fact that with our own pride and with our own ignorance, we cannot see evil when it's right in front of our face. But he's literally saying here that many ways that people want to weaponize Christianity, no, this is the exact way. This is the exact first temptation that Christ resisted when he was in the wilderness. And this is why, as I said, man with very strong principles seems to actually have an understanding of what people around the world are going through, seems to have an understanding of the evil that's being perpetuated throughout the world, that is being done under the guise of humanitarianism and religion and compassion and all of these things. But it's a great evil. It's a grave evil that's going on. And I dare say he sees it the best. And as I said, I was hoping for him to become Pope. I was literally in work when the announcement for Pope came out, and I was so hoping. I was literally going around, come on, Pope Sarah, Pope Sarah. I know he would have probably chosen a new name, but you know, I was literally hoping for Cardinal Sarah to become Pope, because I dare say would have had much stronger rhetoric almost going on in Syria, much stronger rhetoric on the spread of Islam going throughout the world. There's another bishop, for example, who spoke on it, I think, fairly recently. I think his name's Bishop Athanasius, but it's saying these are not refugees seeking asylum. These are people going to Europe under the guise of refugees that are going there to bring Islam there under colonization and conquest. Okay, so there are people within the church that see it it makes me wonder then, why is it not coming from the top? Why? And again, I'm not saying that he shouldn't be calling out humanitarian crises wherever they are. Absolutely. But why is it that when it was Pope Francis, for example, that the situation in Gaza got paragraph after paragraph after paragraph, there was no statement on the hostages in Israel? Or there would be a little tagline within that passage, right? There would never be any statement, a paragraph saying the hostages need to be released from Israel, for example, to Israel, sorry. The hostages need to be released from Gaza to Israel, saying that, no, I unequivocally condemn what's going on in Syria right now. Not just, I also pray for the victims of violence in southern Syria, on the back of a statement where he said, my heart is close to all those who are suffering due to conflict and violence throughout the world. Particularly, I pray for those affected by the clashes along the border between Thailand and Cambodia, especially displaced children and their families. May the Prince of Peace inspire everyone to seek dialogue and reconciliation. All good. All good, but then literally it's just one line. I also pray for the victims of violence in southern Syria. And then there's literally one line and then another paragraph about the situation in Gaza and all of these things. But again, nothing about hostages being released from Gaza. Again, just seems so one-sided. And it does make me wonder why. Is it because they don't want to criticize Islam? Is it they don't want to criticize Islam? But again, kind of hypocritical in a way when you say the Pope is saying that those who accept migrants and stuff like this inherit, as children of God is recognized, and in which all our brothers and sisters part of the same family. You guys have seen the big wall around the Vatican, right? You guys have seen the very strict border controls that the Vatican has. What gives? What gives? But the church is an institution, especially in this country, that you think would be had to be a bulwark against the evil, had to be, one of the biggest things that would stand against the evil that's going on right now. No, it's one of the biggest perpetuators, at least in this country, as you've seen time and time and time again, especially with the previous Archbishop. Is this Selby? Is this Selby? Or am I getting him confused with the snooker player? I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he covered up for a sexual abuse scandal, I think, for about 20 years. But this is very sad. This is very, very sad. So the Church of England, I believe this is supposed to yesterday, says its own teaching on marriage is a safeguarding risk as it continues to blacklist a chaplain for a sermon. So Reverend Dr. Bernard Randall, who is being supported by the Christian Legal Center, was labeled a, quote, risk to children after a sermon saying pupils didn't have to accept LGBT ideology, and he remains blacklisted by the Church of England. So the Church of England is one of the things I believe that Christ was talking about now when he said about synagogues of Satan, right? Literally standing against the evil that wants to befall children and actually promoting Christian teaching is now deemed as a risk to children. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Despite no action from Prevent, he was reported to who he was reported to as a potential extremist or other secular bodies. He says he's been left bewildered and broken by his continued blacklisting. The Church of England has now started a new safeguarding process against Dr. Randall, despite him being vindicated and no evidence provided that he has done anything wrong. So what he said was, where's his sermon? So his sermon is by here. Let me see if I can find the actual thing. Here we go. So according to this is his sermon. Paragraph 3. Is it paragraph 3? Yes, paragraph 3. So he speaks about Brexit, European Union, two competing ideologies. Don't denigrate a person simply for having opinions and beliefs which you don't share. And then here we go. There has been another set of competing ideals in the news recently. You may have heard of the protests outside a Birmingham primary school over the teachings of an LGBT-friendly No Outsiders program. In a mostly Muslim community, this has been sensitive because many parents feel that their children are being pushed to accept ideas which run counter to Islamic moral values. Many in that community are concerned, even angry, that their children are having an agenda and ideology pushed on them, which is in conflict with their religion. Obviously, it's okay when Muslims do it. Anything like this is going to be okay when Muslims do it. They'll bend over backwards to appease them, obviously. And in our own school community, I have been asked about a similar thing. This is one of the requested topics. This is an example, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, of how multiculturalism will never work, because you cannot have diametrically opposite cultures in this way in coexistence, because they're constantly going to come into conflict, especially when children are involved. And the question which was put to me in a very particular way, how come we are told we have to accept all of this LGBT stuff in a Christian school? I thought that was a very intelligent and thoughtful way of asking about the conflict of values rather than asking which is right and which is wrong. So my answer is this. There are some aspects of the Educate and Celebrate program which are simply factual. There are same-sex attracted people in our society, and there are people who experience gender dysphoria, and so on. There are some areas where two sets of values overlap. No one should be discriminated against simply for who he or she is. That's Christian value, based in loving our neighbors as ourselves. And God making humankind in his image, male and female. Ooh, controversial there, controversial. And himself loving everyone equally. All these things should be accepted straightforwardly by all of us, and it's right that the equalities law reflects that. I have a massive problem with the equalities law anyway, simply because you cannot have, for example, no discrimination based on sex and then no discrimination based on gender identity, because they directly go in conflict with each other. But there are areas where the two sets of ideas are in conflict, and in these areas you do not have to accept the ideas and ideologies of LGBT activists. Instead, since Trent, I'm assuming he means I'm assuming he either means the place or council of Trent, maybe, exists to, quote, educate boys and girls according to the Protestant and evangelical principles of the Church of England, unquote. Anyone who tells you that you must accept contrary principles is jeopardizing the school's charitable status and therefore its very existence. You should no more be told you have to accept LGBT ideology than you should be told you must be in favor of Brexit or must be Muslim, to both of which I'm sure most of you would rightly object. A little bit down, so this is a long sermon. Here we go. There are several areas where many or most Christians, and for that matter, people of other faiths too, would be in disagreement with LGBT activists, and where you must make up your own mind. So it is perfectly legitimate to think marriage should only be properly understood as being a lifelong exclusive union as a man and a woman. Indeed, that definition is written into English law. You may perfectly properly believe that, as an ideal, sexual activity only belongs within marriage, and therefore any other kind is morally problematic. That is the position of all the major faith groups, though note it doesn't apply only to same-sex couples. And it is belief-based not only on scripture, but on a highly positive view of marriage as the building block of a society where people of all kinds flourish, and on recognizing that there are many positive things in life more important than sex, if only we'd let them be. This viewpoint is recognized by many people as extremely liberating, and it's an ethical position which could also be arrived at independently of any religious text, I think. Yes, because the family is the bedrock of society. The family is the bedrock of society. And the minute you get rid of that, you have complete and utter chaos, and you have total governmental control, because the only thing that can really stand against government tyranny is the nuclear family. So when you start getting into same-sex unions and IVF, you start getting into other moral questions with regards to the morality of IVF, and how many eggs it produces, or how many fertilized eggs it produces, how many human lives it produces, that are then just discarded in a waste bin, basically, or put into an incinerator, right? But this is all being made the way. The minute you take marriage out of it, it paves the way for so many other grave evils. Such as what happened recently with, I believe it was 2 gay men got somebody to be a surrogate for their child, and the woman, it was reported on Michael Knowles' show, the woman had to go through cancer treatment, so the baby was able to be delivered early. It was delivered, I believe, at around 24 weeks or 26 weeks, perfectly viable, and then the 2 men just decided they were going to let the baby die. They were going to deprive it of its life-saving care that it needed. So again, it's paving the way for truly, truly grave evils when you divorce reproduction from marriage, and when you divorce the reproductive act from marriage, and then when you try to dilute the meaning of marriage that's when you open the door for all of this to come through. So the fact that the Church of England is, and this guy, he doesn't exactly sound like, you know, a far-right Nazi kind of thing, but this is the thing, you're dealing with a new religion now. You're dealing with a new religion now. The religion of multiculturalism, the religion of diversity, that's what you're dealing with. These people are religious zealots in the same way they accuse Christians and anybody else of being. So anything that goes against their religion, you have to be stamped out. You have to be blacklisted. You have to be all of this. It's truly awful. So as I said, he was dismissed from his role. He was referred to counter-terrorism, denied a license to preach, and labelled a safeguarding risk. I'm sorry, the people want to get at children and corrupt them in this way and destroy the family are far more of a safeguarding risk than this preacher, in my opinion. In my opinion. Every official body, Prevent, the Teaching Regulation Agency, DBS, and local safeguard and answer found no case to answer. Well, there was no case against it to begin with. Yeah, the Church of England continues to treat him as a risk based on what he might say in future sermons. He might actually preach somewhat of a Christian value, and therefore he might need to be blacklisted again. Or, you know, you can't have the children in the Church of England, can't have the Church of England espousing Christian values now, can you? Or, espousing Christian values. Awful. So again, this is what happens when the church seems to fall away. And that's why many people like myself included are rallying around Cardinal Sarah. Because we actually see someone truly courageous and standing up for the church. And is actually going to be a strong leader that we need, because in the world that we live in now, we need a strong leader more than anything. I can't help but think that we need something like a Pope Urban. I think it was Pope Urban II. I think it was Pope Urban II. Let me just double check. Let me see if I can find it. Pope Urban II, yes, in 1095. And he called a crusade. We need more of that kind of figure, I think, in the modern day. Obviously, I'm not a theologian or, you know, expert on these matters, but fact of the matter is we are at war. And it just seems that where was the Catholic Church? Where was the Church of England when all these young girls were being raped in Britain? When the rape of Britain was going on in the name of Islam and for ethno-religious reasons, where was the Catholic Church? Did they not know? Why haven't they said anything about it now? It's public common knowledge now. You can't have something be said by Elon Musk and have the widespread knowledge of what's been going on in Britain ever since the 50s now on Front Street like this, and the Catholic Church not know about it. You know, the one of the biggest church institutions in the world, if not the biggest, which does a lot of good work in the world, be the first to say that, but they cannot not know about this, and still they've said nothing. Why? Why have they not said anything? Why have they not put out the call? Why have they not put out the call for our lands to be liberated? Makes you think, doesn't it? Just makes you think about the head of the institution and why Cardinal Sarah, people like Cardinal Sarah, are so well valued. A final positive note to end on, ladies and gentlemen, something a bit more positive. A bit funny. So in the UK recently, the nanny state has brought in an online safety bill, as they call it. And have I got out of focus again? I hope I have. There we are. The UK nanny state has brought in a online safety bill. So they claim it was going to help with the problem of kids viewing pornography and stuff like that. Which I'm not against, in theory. You know, it's just obvious how these things will be weaponized for political reasons. And now we're seeing that it is being done to, for example, remove people's ability to see footage of protests outside migrant hotels and stuff like that. It's truly, truly dystopian, Orwellian. But do you want to know something that's really funny? That the young kids, you know, who maybe just want to watch some, you know, illicit material. Obviously they shouldn't be, but kids are going to be kids. In some instances, if the parents are not watching and stuff. The parents are not bringing them up with good values and stuff. Want to know some ways they're getting around this? Have a look at this photo, ladies and gentlemen. So this is a photo, and you can see the phone in the foreground here, of the Death Stranding video game. I don't know if it's Death Stranding 1 or 2, but it's Norman Reedus' character. Norman Reedus plays the main character, the player control character, the porter character, making this hilarious face. I'm not sure why he's making this face, with a seal helmet on. Now, these things are normally given to you like when one of Hideo Kojima's other games, where you could get a chicken hat. It's if you fail a mission so many times and you say, when a prompt comes up on screen, you want to make it easier. The enemies won't be able to see you. This is from Metal Gear Solid 5. The enemies won't be able to see you or detect you, or they'll laugh at you. They won't actually engage you in combat, and they'll laugh at you. So you can then complete the mission, but you've got to wear this silly chicken hat, right? So this is like some kind of customizable thing, but it's from a video game, right? This is from a video game. But this image, these images from this video game was used, no word of a lie, to pass the age check verifications in the UK, as you can see here. So this is a character. When you're in this mode, for those of you again may not be familiar with video games, when you're in this mode, you can change your character's facial expressions. So some of them you can open their mouths, make this funny face. Some of them you can close their mouth, stuff like that. Somebody used photos from a character from a video game. It's obviously like in there. I don't know how old Norman Reedus is now. How old is Norman Reedus? Let's have a little. Let me have a look. How old is Norman Reedus? Norman Reedus is 56 now, so I think the character was made to look a little bit younger. So say this character is about, I don't know, between 40 and 50. Let's just say that. Using a photo of a character from a video game, taken with the front cam, mind you, bringing this back up on screen for you now, just again, so you can mind, this was taken with the front cam on the phone, as you can see by the phone in the foreground. And it passed the verification check. If you're wondering what people's X feeds look like in the UK right now, which even a VPN doesn't really seem to solve, this is what things look like now if you try to look at things that the government deems as though it needs to check your age because of. Let me bring this image up on screen for you. So this is typically, now in the UK, a lot of what you see. This is now a lot of what you see. It says, due to local laws, we are temporarily restricting access to this content until X estimates your age. So again, but this now is not just, you know, pornographic material and stuff like that. So we were told that it was going to be for. It is doing that. It is doing that. And Elon Musk has said that he is working on this. But this is now just even random political posts and stuff like that. And currently there is obviously no way for X to verify the age. So that's why Elon Musk is working on it. And now people are making all kinds of jokes saying, thanks to the UK government, I now have to whip my passport out whenever I want to have a cheeky one. You know what I mean? But maybe it will serve some kind of a positive purpose if it does get people off being hooked on their vices and stuff like that. Who's to say? But the biggest thing is, again, like Plaid Cymru saying they want to improve people's health, improve this and improve that by bringing in 20-minute cities. Government saying they want to keep you safe. Nothing more terrifying than a person from the government coming to your house and saying, I'm here to help, as Ronald Reagan would say. But here you have the government saying that they want to try and help you, keep you safe. Makes you wonder, why do they need to keep us safe? What are they doing that may need to keep us safe from, but verifying the things online? Maybe we'll see some realities of the political system we live in, and maybe it will make them harder to institute a system like a North Korea or China or something like that. But it's on all of us to be in the fight for evil. That's why I said in the last episode, you're in the fight for evil. You're in the fight for good against evil, whether you like it or not, and whether you believe it or not. And that's where we're going to leave it for today. So thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you found it useful more than anything. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. Thank you very much for watching. You take care now. Diolch yn fawr. And we'll see you next time. Godspeed. Oh, I didn't say my hwyl fawr. Hwyl fawr, ladies and gentlemen. Godspeed.